I hereby call the Planning Commission meeting of February 18th, 2026 to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Luddick,
Here.
Commissioner Lindy,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson,
Here.
Commissioner Weimer,
Here.
Commissioner Kuhn, and Commissioner Litz.
Okay, thank you. Are there any announcements or Planning Commission communications? Any of us? Okay. We're gonna move to the approval of minutes, which we do have. Have the members had a chance to review the draft minutes for the October 15th, 2025 meeting?
Yes.
Anybody have anything that they needed to change or comments they need to make? Is there a motion for the draft of the minutes for the October 15th, 2025 meeting to be approved?
So moved.
Okay. Everybody say aye or nay? Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any communication with the public regarding items not on the agenda? I assume you're here for the agenda. Okay, perfect. So the first action item on the agenda is a city-initiated code amendment pursuant to TDC 32.0102E. The Planning Commission is being asked to provide a recommendation to the City Council on a city-initiated code amendment that expands existing regulations for backyard chickens in the low-density residential zone, RL, to include domestic fowl under PTA 26-001. City staff will now provide a staff report.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Erin Eckman. I'm the planner here at the City Council.
Okay. Can everybody hear me online? It looks like we might have one participant in Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not.
Oh,
Okay.
we can hear it.
Well, tonight we will be discussing a city-initiated amendment, which is known as PTA 26-0001 for domestic fowl regulations. Next slide, please. So for tonight's agenda, we'll review the project purpose, look at our code amendments that are proposed. We'll review the approval criteria for this legislative amendment, discuss next steps for City Council, and then we'll conclude with discussion and recommendation on the motion. Next slide, please. So for some background, the origin of our chicken keeping regulations started in 2013, where we passed Plan Text Amendment 13-02 to allow chicken keeping in the RL zone through the adoption of Ordinance 1362-13. This ordinance also included some standards in our municipal code. One thing to flag, though, is that the code was strictly limited to chicken keeping and not ducks or other domestic fowls. I think at the time we didn't anticipate maybe there being a desire for those things. So now we're back to discuss that desire. And some of the history behind the desire is in summer of last year, we did receive a code complaint regarding strange animals being kept in the RL zone or low density residential zone. And our code officer met with the property owner who explained that his family was keeping ducks. And maybe one thing to note is that our development code generally identifies what uses are allowed or permitted, conditionally permitted, or limited. However, the code does not typically list prohibited uses in residential zones. So by this design, the city cannot anticipate every situation. And oh, sorry, I meant to say that that was by design and the city can't anticipate every situation. But ultimately, if a use is not explicitly stated, it is generally not allowed. But because of this, the property owner didn't see a specific prohibition on ducks. So after the code officer met with the property owner then petitioned council to review the matter and amend the city law to allow for the keeping of ducks in the RL zone. Staff later had a discussion with council at a work session in August of last year, and we were directed to amend the chicken regulations to include domestic fowl. And they also specified that they wanted us to keep our scope fairly limited just to fast track this project. So moving on to the project purpose, we can go to the next slide, please. The purpose of this code is to provide minimum standards for keeping domestic fowl humanely in urban backyards, while also safeguarding the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Tualatin. So under that charge, staff amended our existing regulations for the keeping of backyard chickens to include domestic fowl. Public engagement will be limited under this project to meet our legislative process requirement. Now, is that while the Planning Commission is typically charged with making recommendations to the development code, there is some intersectionality between the municipal code and the development code under this project. So we have shared the comprehensive suite of amendments to both Tualatin Municipal Code, Chapter 1615, and the Development Code, Chapters 39 and 40, for your consideration tonight. Next slide, please. So under our proposed amendments, we are proposing to define domestic fowl to include chickens, ducks, pheasants, pigeons, quails, partridges, doves, and similar birds for personal use. Staff arrived at this by looking at other domestic fowl ordinances in the region and kind of saw that there was some commonalities between these birds. And some of their shared character traits include that they provide a sustainable source of eggs, they provide natural pest control, they typically need minimal space needs, and they're easily adaptable to human activity and environments. And on our next slide, we are proposing some prohibited domestic fowl, which include roosters, geese, guinea fowl, peacocks, and turkeys. Some of the traits that we found these domestic fowl might be negative to neighboring property owners because they are loud, they can cause property damage, and they can be aggressive towards people and pets. So on the next slide, this slide is kind of an overview of what we found in our code research. So the green dots mean that we found that certain birds were permitted. I included a green diamond specifying that the code was silent on type, but it did include categories that the birds might fall under. A dash means that we found those specific birds weren't listed in code. Yellow means that they were permitted on larger lots. I don't know if this would relate to Tualatin since our RL zone doesn't typically allow lots up to 20,000 square feet, and I don't know if we have any existing lots that are that big. And then the red is just not permitted. So I can save us a moment here on this slide so we can all take it in individually, but and maybe I'll kind of pause if you have any questions about this slide.
Why no on the guinea fowl, just out of interest?
So we found that the guinea fowl can be very loud. They're kind of like
Okay.
watchdogs. And they make like a really loud squawking sound, kind of like a rusty bed frame.
Sounds good. Not great. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
good. Okay.
we're wanting to maybe not include those guys.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions about this slide? Okay, let's move on. So the existing code does have some licensing requirements, which we are keeping and making some light amendments to. But just to highlight, the regulations require that a license be obtained by a property once it's approved. We do limit the license to 4 domestic fowl for any lot. And the fowl must be confined to a coop in a fenced backyard or run. And then we also have some requirements for the coop where it must be less than 200 square feet and 8 feet in height. So that generally means that we wouldn't require a building permit to review it. We also require that the coop be enclosed on at least 3 sides, and those 3 sides must be the sides that face the adjoining properties. It should be located at least 10 feet from property lines and 25 feet from adjoining residences, although I don't know if that was necessarily specified in code, and we'll discuss that later. And we also have a standard that the coops and run must be maintained in good repair and sanitary condition. Next slide, please. So as we work through our legislative process, we will be looking at the Tualatin Municipal Code 615, and then 2 chapters of the Tualatin Development Code. So in the municipal code, it contains the regulations for keeping the backyard chickens, and then it works with the development code because the development code provides use categories, and then it provides zoning requirements for where certain uses are permitted. Next slide, please. So public engagement for this process will be kept at an informed level. Notice will be provided to DLCD, government agency partners, our CIO groups. We'll do a posting in the newspaper, and it has also been posted on the city website. So in your packet materials, I have included some detailed findings and analysis for PTA 26-001 as Exhibit 1. The findings demonstrate that the proposal complies with the relevant approval criteria in our development code, which is contained in Chapter 33. And as a next step, we are planning on taking this to a city council hearing for consideration in March 9th. So tonight we're asking the Planning Commission to forward a recommendation to City Council on PTA 26-0001. And I've included a proposed motion for your consideration. And with that, concludes my staff report.
Hey, so we move on to, should we do questions, or we usually move on to, I guess we give other people a chance. So the commission will now hear from any person wishing to speak on this item. Do you wish to speak, or? Yeah, okay.
Say thank you to staff. Anybody that's had a conversation about allowing ducks or including ducks and other fowl into the charter, yes, please. Oh, sure, of course. My name is Kevin Mulvaney. I am the homeowner who was found to have strange animals in my backyard when they were 2-month-old, ducks running around. So, yeah, it was an ask to, because of the ambiguity that we found in the code that didn't explicitly say we couldn't, we maybe took that to say we could. And we are now in this position. But I just wanted all the time and effort for something so small. I mean, this is not transportation. It's not a big budget issue. It's something that's very limited to who it's going to benefit. But the benefits are to my family and others like me are huge. I will know clearly what is and isn't allowed. It gives us some peace knowing that it sounds like, at least from the staff report, that it will pass and go through as we would be allowed to have them. We've been living since last June in kind of limbo and fear that we'd have to get rid of these birds that are pets. We didn't get them for, eggs or meat or making money. We just got them because we wanted pets. So all the time that staff and council members went through discussions, research, whether you were for or against, I appreciate all of that time. And I just wanted to express that gratitude to everybody here. So thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions of staff or any person that provided comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Staff.
Go, Randy.
Aaron, I appreciate that you sent out list of the number of permits that have been issued over time. Have there been complaints about chickens, making noise, other nuisance type activity or generating rats or anything like that?
Right, so we have received some complaints and I have worked with our code enforcement officers to gather that data. Maybe I'll preface by saying that records retention law requires that we hold on to complaints for 1 year. And if there was a citation issue, then we will hold on to that complaint for 3 years. But that being said, we did have some employee records that we could mull through. So we have data going back to 2019. So from 2019 to 2025, we've had a total of 8 complaints. And of those 8 complaints, 3 have referenced rats.
Hmm.
And then what I found in talking to the code enforcement officer is that when they were on site to look for rats or evidence of rats, they weren't able to confirm that rats were on site. So there was no action taken to municipal court on the matter.
Thanks.
When they went to the sites to investigate that, did they also find that the coops and areas where the chickens were in good sanitary condition? There wasn't any notation of violation on that accord?
So the data that I did have kind of spoke to maybe the coop was placed in the wrong spot, or that maybe a coop was being constructed before a license was obtained. So those items have been remedied, but I didn't see any notes about a coop being unsanitary or being called out for something like that. Yeah. Let me just kind of review.
Yeah, of the 8 complaints, is it like the same spot or is it multiple spots, I guess?
It's multiple spots.
Multiple spots, okay.
Yeah, so as an example, the first record happened in 2021 where we received 2 complaints. There were 2 separate complaints, but both referenced rats. And then one was a complaint where in a zone where chickens were not allowed.
Hmm.
And then the second complaint was about the coop placement. And then we asked that it be relocated to a more appropriate location based off of our regulations.
Okay.
And I can provide more details, but that's kind of the flavor of
Okay.
what was shared with me.
Any other questions?
How is the noise issues dealt with?
It's a good question. So we do have standards in our municipal code, not in this particular section talking to domestic fowl, but it's under, let me make sure that I'm giving you the right citation. In 614 subsection 40, which is specific noise disturbances prohibited, bullet 2 speaks to animals. And under that bullet, it is unlawful to keep or permit the keeping of any animal that barks, cries, whimpers, crows, clucks, or makes any other sound on a frequent or continuous basis for 15 minutes or longer.
Hmm.
And that is plainly audible within a noise-sensitive property other than the place where the sound originates. And then in talking to our code enforcement officer, they have had to respond to calls of such violations, but when they've sat to listen to see if it met that 15-minute threshold, they weren't able to verify that that was being addressed.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything that went to municipal court.
Okay. So basically the code for the issues that could come up from this or impacts to adjacent properties, there are mechanisms for somebody to file a complaint and then for the city to address it.
Correct.
I guess that point.
One thing I did notice, I know that several of the domestic fowls that are being considered tonight are kept not only for eggs, but also sometimes for meat. I noticed that in, I think it's section 3015, that harvesting or butchering of the animals is prohibited. Is that strictly within city limits, or is a person who has one of these licenses not allowed to process any of the animals that are covered under the license outside of city limits or in other areas? Is that just saying you can't do that activity in the residential lot, or is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the intent was that it meant on site, so on that residential lot. But like you point out, it's not entirely clear. But I think the intent was that it's just no butchering on site.
Did you get the rest of your questions answered, Randy? I know you had a few
Oh, no,
more.
we're ready for that. Yeah, those, I just had other questions.
Okay, yeah.
No, we're ready to go into that?
Yeah, I think we are.
Oh, okay.
Unless anybody else has anything else that's pressing it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Erin shared with you an email that I sent to her about, this issue. And the reason I brought it up, I happened to live in Eugene, and about the same time the Tualatin Code was adopted, Eugene relaxed its standards for urban farming. And as a result of that, all across the city, there was suddenly a rat explosion. And I have some personal experience with that. I lived in a house for 30 years, and it wasn't until the relaxation of the standards that suddenly I had rats in my wood pile, and so did our neighbors. And so this is kind of a big issue in terms of a public health consideration. And I was really happy to see that the staff looked at other jurisdictions, Salem, Forest Grove, I think it was, Newburgh, and Eugene, to see what standards were in their code. And I'm not pro or con or advocating for any of these things, but I think it merits our discussion about some of the regulations that these other jurisdictions have in place in order to address some of these issues. For example, Zach, you were asking about, is this butchering on site? Either Salem or Eugene clarifies, yeah, it's on site that they don't allow this. And I appreciate the city council wanted to make this simple and clean and just replace the word chicken with domestic fowl. But I think given the history of some of these other jurisdictions, and what's interesting to me also is that in 2025, we had 10 licenses applied for, which kind of is just going to be a growing thing. We now have ducks, and so I think for us to try to get ahead of it, even though it might complicate what the city council was asking for, I think it behooves us to do that. And so I think if you're willing, we can just go step by step through the analysis that I did with the other codes as they apply to our code and see where we want to go with it.
Does everybody sound good with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, okay. You're a cooperative bunch to.
We are. It's a happy subject. We're all happy. Yeah.
Okay, I've got to find out where we are here. Well. Okay, just to begin, and these are all in the municipal code, not in any of our development codes. So first off is in section 030 subsection 2. It talks about a maximum facetious here, but I watched the Friends TV show, and I don't know if any of you do, but these two guys live in an apartment. They have a duck and a chicken. And I think just for clarifying, we need to say a maximum combined for domestic fowls, so that we don't get somebody coming up and say, well, I've got 4 pigeons and 4 pheasants. You can have 2 of each. And so that's my first suggestion, is just clarifying that particular
combined.
aspect. Yeah.
Right. So that's really just an added word, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Make more sense. Any domestic fowl, or combined domestic fowl?
I think combined.
It would.
Yeah, I think combined.
And I think for some added context too, because we define what domestic fowl is in, it becomes apparent that it's like an umbrella term. I think the intent was that anything under that umbrella would be considered a domestic fowl. And
Oh, okay. So that's how, okay.
It's always good to clarify things too.
And I would understand it that way too, but the guys and friends might not.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple ways we could wordsmith it. I think combined, I think of any type.
Oh, yeah.
Permitted
Yeah,
type.
nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
but I think we hear you that
Yeah.
it might be an opportunity for added clarity right there.
Okay, okay. On the next point, section 010 defines domestic fowl by naming several specific birds, but the code also then gives itself some leeway by the words and similar birds. And when we get down into 0303, where we're prohibiting certain birds, I'm suggesting that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And
Did I get too confused?
I couldn't help myself.
It's all foul joke.
And we,
Yeah.
I was expecting a groan from Ursula. on that.
We're all in at
Anyway,
this point.
Just to provide the staff leeway on the prohibited section as well, I would recommend that same words be added there unless there's some reason.
To the ones that are not,
Not.
to the ones that are banned, the
prohibited, yeah.
prohibited ones say, or similar birds.
Yeah,
Just saying any birds that meet the criteria of being loud, aggressive.
yeah, that's
or
right. Yeah.
Would be banned. That way we don't have someone coming and saying, well, you didn't mention emu. You know,
And specifically, Salem or Eugene includes emus and ostriches, and just for clarity, I put them in there.
I'd like to think no one would do that, but you never know.
Yeah. My reflection is, the allowed birds and similar birds, because all the birds that we have put on our domestic fowl definition are smaller. It was my hope that maybe an emu or an ostrich wouldn't be considered as
Similar
similar.
enough.
But again, it's great to clarify that that would be
Yeah.
prohibited. My one reflection about maybe adding and similar birds to the prohibited list is that it could become a slippery slope for code enforcement if it's not well defined what and similar bird would be. It kind of leaves some room for interpretation of what would be prohibited for code enforcement. And I don't know if you have thoughts around that matter, but just maybe a consideration.
Does that work in reverse then too for the birds that are allowed?
Yeah. So I think for context, we added the or similar in response to what we heard from council, is that like they kind of felt that perhaps when we did this first pass through that maybe we weren't as broad thinking as we should have been by just saying chickens. And so they were pretty clear, at least what I heard in the tape was that they didn't want to come back and incrementally add one
Each
more
bird.
and one
Yeah,
more, right?
yeah.
So so that's why we put that in there. I'm not an expert on fowl of any type, but I would suggest perhaps to think about if there's certain ones. I think you mentioned you forwarded a couple in your email that you think would be good to add to the prohibited list that are concerns. I do think that might be a way to get at it. If there's a couple we should add, like I think you had the ostrich on there.
The emu.
Emu. I think there's no harm, no foul. If
Uh-huh.
adding a few, I didn't mean to do that. Adding a few to the prohibited list, I do think it gets a bit murky of I can see your point. It works both ways, but it would work both ways from a he said, she said neighbor kind of perspective too. You're similar, my similar. I don't know that it's good to put that language in both places.
Okay, it's, I doubt that this would happen, but for example, if somebody, and I doubt this would happen because it's a tropical bird, but a cassowary is like a large emu, only
Mhm.
very aggressive and mean.
Mhm.
that's
And
a
so-
dinosaur, not a bird.
It's kind of like that.
I know.
And
I've seen them. They're
Yeah, so that, yeah, see, and that's the problem. So, you know, if I come to you and say, Aaron, I want to put a cassowary in my backyard.
But I don't think a cassowary is gonna be considered a domestic fowl. It's a tropical bird.
that would be an exotic.
Yeah,
Are ostriches and emus?
those would be exotic.
Oh,
But maybe we could spell out the emu and ostrich just to be safe,
Okay.
just in case. And then how do you feel about not doing the similar birds on the, I
I'll
mean,
do that.
it does make me a little nervous. Somebody could come in with something and be like, well, it's something similar. And we don't know all the birds, obviously. But I see what the city council's getting at. We can't do this every time, right?
My other concern with the or similar birds is somebody doing like something like a turkin. Well, it's half chicken.
Yeah, that's right. You said it was real mean too.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
they're half turkeys, so. Oh.
Oh, that's true. You
So
could end up
if
with
it's not
blended
turkey,
birds.
like,
Yeah,
that would be.
Turkey.
but,
I just learned something.
They're not fun.
but if that was the direction.
Prohibit turkeys. I guess my answer to that would be we prohibit turkeys, right?
We do.
Okay,
So even half turkeys are also prohibited.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my answer is that like, while the code didn't contemplate every possible combination of.
That's true.
If it's you know, I think you know, half of it falls into something that's prohibited. I think I would feel comfortable saying that that is also prohibited.
Yeah. That sounds good.
That's
Okay,
fine.
so,
Asking that 10 had it removed to say other similar, and that 30 had it added to say.
No, I
No.
was keeping it in.
he just wanted to
keep it in
add.
Wanted to have
ten.
it same,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, and now we're agreeing not to add it in the prohibited section.
but then do we feel okay about adding the emus and the ostrich as a no? Just to be safe. I mean, I think that that's fine. Doesn't hurt, right? And definitely don't want it. So, yeah. Okay.
Okay,
This may be revealing my ignorance again. I am also not an expert in keeping fowl. I've never owned a bird. This is only going to be covering, you mentioned that you keep yours as pets, not for their eggs, not for their meat. This would not apply to birds that are like domestic fowl, but are purely indoor birds, like parakeets, parrots, finches, other ones that are
The ones that are.
Indoor.
considered Household.
yeah, that this wouldn't cover
So that's
those.
separate.
Yeah, I
Right?
would think that'd be different, right? That's just like a,
I'm just not sure how broad, you know, the category of domestic fowl actually is. You know what I'm saying? And similar.
Yeah, I guess my response to that would be because the regulations live in a chapter of the municipal code called general offenses and nuisances. That I think that speaks more broadly to maybe like public realm
Okay.
or backyards.
Mm, yeah.
Not necessarily what happens inside of the house.
That's fair.
And that it says in 005. Yeah, and I'd go back to kind of the.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
And then Teresa, our planning manager, made a great point that if you look at the purpose statement of the domestic fowl regulations, it does link it to the backyard.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, which is nice too, because that's not the front yard, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good.
If someone had a bird indoors that was constantly making noise.
That could be
open
in the
window,
adjoining buildings. Yeah, that'd be a whole different
that-
issue.
The municipal code would apply, but this is different.
Okay. Okay, Randy, what's your next one?
okay, with your old subsection 4 prohibits harvesting and butchering. And I know, as I recall, the preamble of the code says no commercial use. This is just birds for personal consumption. But the current code says harvesting or butchering, and I understand harvesting, deer hunting now is referred to as harvesting, so forth. But as I played this through, if people are raising fowl for eggs, you're gonna preclude them from harvesting eggs? I mean, I don't know. So I would suggest that we're just silent on harvesting. But I do see a distinction between slaughtering and butchering. And I would suggest that both those words be included in the code. And Aaron, back to that point, this is on-site slaughtering and butchering of a domestic fowl is prohibited, so that we don't have guts and feathers flying all over the backyards.
And I think those are good clarifications that we could.
Add in. Does everybody feel okay about that?
So we
Yeah,
would
that
remove-
sounds
we would
good to me
remove
too.
Harvesting so that it doesn't.
Affect the
preclude
egg.
Eggs. But
yeah.
we would add
Slaughtering.
slaughtering and butchering.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're interchangeable.
I was
but
gonna say, I'm not sure I know the difference, but yet again, haven't done it, so
They're interchangeable, Janelle, but
Okay.
still you can. chop
it makes
the
it very
chicken's head
clear,
off.
makes it
Yeah,
very clear.
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
You're not-
that's true.
Defeathering it, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
Then skipping down to 0306. This was just a fine distinction, that diagram, Aaron, that you had. We require domestic fowl facilities to be 25 feet from all residences. And I think Salem says from adjacent residences, but only 3 feet from your own. And now that we're going with more density with townhouses and multiplexes, and even on smaller single family lots, if somebody wanted to make an issue of that 25 feet from all residences, again, this is just simply clarifying language. And I don't know if 3 feet is the right number or not, but
Because that's kind of what you meant with the three-sided, is that they're abutting their own structure, right?
Inside doors.
Yeah.
Right, so at least there would be a mitigated enclosure on the sides that abut the residential properties. But I do see your point about building in some clarity around the 25-foot setback.
yeah.
I think that makes sense. Because these aren't subject to building code permitting or a
Mm.
site inspection. I don't know if we have researched best practices about how far back they should be set from the on-site residence.
Yeah.
So we might have to look into that a little deeper if we
Think-
wanted to look at that.
Salem might have some logic for, I think it was Salem that had that.
3 foot.
Yeah.
I think 3 foot's pretty common for a lot of things. When I
Yeah.
did, code out in county areas, 3 foot separation for animal pens and stuff like that was pretty common.
It's probably like a fire code thing, right?
Yeah, getting around, there's a 3 foot for separation, yet, but the fire code is a lot.
I mean, 3 foot is also for a lot of accessory structures. A lot of municipalities have that as well. This again wouldn't change the way we permit them, so they still would not get a building permit, but we would operate as we normally do on complaint. If someone said, I think their coop is a foot from their house, then we could enforce that, but we wouldn't be reviewing the coops as they come in for those standards anyway, but.
Yeah.
I was thinking more the person who reads that and says, hey, that needs to be 25 feet from their house too.
Yeah, that's how I would have probably read that.
Does it still need the 3 foot distance from the existing house on site in your mind if we change it to 25 feet from abutting residences?
Or from
I
structure
don't know.
on adjacent
I don't care.
properties,
I mean, I guess it's a fire code issue, but
Yeah.
Bring or adjacent.
From neighbor.
Surrounding,
That's
yeah.
more
Yeah.
important. Yeah. it's-
Some qualifier there to
It's-
clarify that
yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
a house on site.
yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes
and that's specifically what part of Salem does, is 25 feet from adjacent residences.
sense.
Mhm.
No, adjacent's good.
Oh, yeah, okay, are we ready to go on to that?
Yeah, we are.
OTO 7, we have this maximum 200 square feet for a coop and or run. It just seems to me, if we're talking about in the preamble, treating these domestic fowls humanely, we might want to write in some minimum standard for the coop and the run, so that people aren't squeezing in things that makes the birds unhealthy. And again, it just, one of these, Salem requires, they have some square footage requirements that they recommend. So I would suggest some consideration be given to minimum square footages for these birds.
Does Washington County have their own regulations?
They may, I didn't necessarily delve into that, but in response to your question, I did do some research around recommendations from the US Department of Agriculture.
No.
And they provide guidelines that recommend 3 to 4 square feet per chicken and 5 square feet per duck, with at least 10 square feet per fowl of outdoor run area. So that could be a consideration. And then Oregon State University provides recommendations related to chickens at 3 square feet per bird with access to a run or outdoor area, or 8 to 10 square feet per bird with no outdoor access.
That's the same, that's a.
Yeah.
Hang your hat on somebody you can point your finger at, I guess. Yeah.
And there's never more than 4 of any kind of bird, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
big or not. So 4
Right.
big birds still is only, what did we decide there, 40 feet? Right, so we're good.
It's a minimum, I didn't add it up.
Is 3 the consistent?
So if I think what I found in my research is that different sized birds have different requirements. And since ducks maybe are on the bigger side, 5 square feet could maybe be a good measure to hang our hat on based off the US Department of Agriculture.
Cool,
Yeah,
like it.
that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
5 times
Yeah.
4 is 20.
We're okay with that? As a minimum.
Chicken.
Yeah.
I do know enough, like, you don't need that much space for instance, quail though. So like
Right.
requiring
that's
someone who's
true.
going to, be keeping quail or something else
Yeah.
that doesn't
Yeah,
actually
that's true.
like usually come out into a run area because they're very shy and small animals. Like, we don't want to force someone who's keeping 4 quail to build a 40 square foot, covered
And,
space.
and Salem does distinguish between small birds and larger birds.
Yeah.
And for small birds, it's 1 square foot of coop space per bird.
So what do they designate as a small bird?
Yeah.
Well,
I have to.
I think we have that distinction, the partridge and dove and some of those other, and again,
Yeah, but that language would have to be.
We may need to do some research between definitions for a small bird and a large bird. I haven't really found I guess, good examples of what that could be or a best practice for the distinction between small and large.
maybe you leave it with ducks and chickens if that's what the agriculture department's concerned about.
Yeah,
But take
and
a
then
look
for
at
small
what
ones.
About somebody who is choosing to own up to 4 birds in their backyard in town, not treating their birds right and trying to protect birds. I guess I feel like that kind of a protection is more necessary in a bigger scope of 20 chickens in the yard or something.
The only concern, Ursula, again, is with townhouses and multiplex units on small lots.
So as long as your lot's big enough in whatever arrangement it is, that it's 25 feet from all neighbors, 3
Yeah.
feet from your house, however many creatures you have fit in your yard, that also has to have a fence. I mean, I can't fathom
Yeah.
that there's, even at the townhouses at Autumn Sunrise, that the yards back there are such a concern for that. I'm trying to think of one. Help me think of one.
Well, you're writing a code for going forward to the future, so the yards that exist today won't be the yards 50 years from now.
Yard
Yeah.
fences.
Or even 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think people who are choosing to put the investment into getting the permit or purchasing the fowl, all of the work that goes into maintaining them and the cost of keeping them healthy are really going to be squishing them and not having a good habitat for them.
We would hope not.
I would disagree on that, because, I mean, animal control and everything out there, there's plenty of people that get all different kinds of pets that are just like random, like, I want to get a pet. So, I mean, the same with ducks. My ex-wife had ducks because her dad for Easter was like, I'm gonna get ducks
Oh
and
my
bring them
God.
home and nowhere to keep them. I mean, just somebody that should not have ducks. So you don't need a permit or a license to get the animals, and so sometimes having rules and regulations out there to protect people from their own whims is kind of beneficial.
Okay, so what do we feel like? Do we want to pursue a minimum? That's what we're discussing, right? Do we want to pursue a minimum or do we? There is also the case, you guys put in the language, I forgot what it says exactly, but it does say healthful and safe manner or something in there, correct?
Would it maybe just be possible to find, rather than rehashing everything within our code,
Mm-hmm.
if, USDA or
Oh.
Washington County already has this, we could simply say,
Point.
yeah, in keeping
USDA.
with, and then
Guidelines.
cite the regulations.
Oh, yeah, follow
that
best
then put
practices
together,
or something.
and then have a citation there, and that way we don't have to define it, we don't have to reproduce it, we can simply say we are adopting this recommendation by this body.
That'd be possible.
I think I like where you're going with that. What I was just thinking, I think there's some other items that you're gonna discuss, when you get into the realm of like, whether there's animal abuse or, something's not being cared for, that is in the realm of the county or police,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how the ORS is written and the statutes fall. I'm guessing there's perhaps some metrics there that we might be able to mine a little bit to see if it's like, if someone calls in and says, I think these are being kept in really small enclosures that's not meeting, the humane laws of, maybe there's something we can find there. I do think it gets a little messy if we just pick a number.
Yeah.
And not that we're just picking, there's some good data for like maybe a duck, but then to your point, we're allowing a broad menu of types of domestic fowl, some are which are very small. And I don't want to make someone overbuild a site for that reason either. So I think, you know, if you guys are comfortable, we can put that we feel like you want us to make sure whether there's something already we can point to and or explore some other controls to ensure that a minimum safe space is provided for the
You
domestic.
know,
Yeah.
now that I think about when I go like to the state fair, there's pigeons and all kinds of other small birds, either the OSU Extension Service or maybe the Future Farmers of America or somebody like
Mhm.
that even has some kind of guidelines that we could lean on.
Everybody feel good about that? Okay.
Okay, 03010, our code currently lists, quote, obnoxious smells and substances. Salem addresses, quote, odors and noise that create a nuisance. And Eugene goes further by describing a noise disturbance a little bit more than that. But Aaron, you already read that we have a noise ordinance for nuisances.
Yeah, that feels pretty strict to me.
Oh,
already.
Goes
Yeah.
or makes other disturbing noises for a period of greater than
Yeah,
15 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was in 61440. And then if we're addressing odor, we do have some regulations in 6450, which is nuisances affecting public health. So we have two sections that I can highlight. Two is debris, which is the accumulation of debris, rubbish, manure, or other refuse that are not removed within a reasonable time and that affect the health of the city. And then 6 speaks to odor, premises which are in such a state or condition as to cause an offensive odor or which are in an unsanitary condition.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that covers that too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, keep going, Randy.
Okay, 03011. This is the rat problem, and this is the one that I think really deserves some attention. Section 11 specifies how feed is to be stored, and I don't have the wording, but I think it's in a metal container with a cover or something, and that's feed. And that rats do go after that. But this issue about animal manure that you talked about and bedding, when people clean out chicken coops and the manure and the old straw or whatever is there and they pile it in a compost pile and it's open, if that's not disposed of, that's what's creating the attraction of rats. And it was, I think it was Eugene's lesson that it says compost piles that contain manure and bedding must be located at least 5 feet from all property lines and confined within a container or bin enclosed on all sides and covered to deter vermin. And I'm like Justin said, you know, some folks understand what kind of hard work this can be to keep things clean, but after a while the chicks grow up and everybody gets tired of them and pretty soon things go to pot and that attracts the rats. And that's an issue that I think we want to be real careful of. So I, for one, don't think it would be over-regulation to include this requirement to keep this stuff within a container or bin enclosed on all sides and covered to deter vermin.
So trash can would meet that,
Trash
right?
can would meet that, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But that doesn't
The
allow for the.
difference
compost
between
aspect.
putting animal manure in the trash can and putting it in somewhere open that it can compost creates the anaerobic versus aerobic,
Yeah.
I guess is my first thought, where I'm like, that sounds pungent.
Yeah,
And
'cause then
not-
it's
Yeah.
Not
it's
gonna
not
do
capable of
anything. It
composting
can't degrade,
and
it can't.
degrading because it's in
You
a sealed
contained it.
container.
Not that I'm a great.
Do we have
composter,
restrictions on
but-
composting in town?
Do we have rules on?
I don't even know.
That when you started talking about that, that's my thought, but I will admit, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think the best we have is under nuisances affecting public health, bullet 2 debris, and that's the accumulation of debris, rubbish, manure, other refuse that are not removed within a reasonable time that affect the health of the city. Potentially compost could be considered debris.
Yeah,
I mean, you said manure in there.
You
so
said
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
It's already in there.
So I think having that broad requirement, and then also when we look at our domestic fowl requirements, we do have a bullet that speaks to the domestic fowl facility must be maintained in good repair, in a clean and sanitary condition, free of vermin and obnoxious smells and substances that create a nuisance for adjoining property. So I guess my question to the planning commission is, do those two broad statements kind of encompass what we're talking about, or do we need another clarification?
The other broad statement, the overall one, I think, is not a enforceable code in any way, because it says for the health of the city. That's way too open and needs to be defined or anything like that. I mean, that's so much interpretation on that. And you're talking about health of the city as opposed to how it impacts an adjacent property. So that I think is non-functionable, but the one that you have in there that talks about a noxious odors or anything like that to adjacent properties is effective. Then it's just determining what is the odor threshold and what is noxious or not.
So in speaking to our code enforcement officer, the way he defines that is by using reasonableness standards of what a reasonable person would find obnoxious or an odor that affects property.
Yeah.
And our city attorney kind of chimed in and said that that has been working for the city. We haven't really taken anything to municipal court over an odor based off of the reasonableness metric. But I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add.
No, I mean, I think you summarized it well. I mean, we know that anything with odor is a hard thing to enforce.
Yes.
But I think one thing, and if you think we need to add some language here and you would recommend that, then please, but just keep in mind, it's kind of layering. So we have the odor, we have a lot of regulations to say, like, if we're seeing rat issues, we can go out, as we talked about at the beginning. So that would also feed into that. So there's a couple of different things that get at it. So whether or not you think that perhaps there needs to be, you referenced a setback for a compost, if there's a reason for that setback versus it being 5 versus it being 3, I would say if there's a reason for that, we would explore that. I think we need to be careful what we add, that whether or not that plays well with the other areas of the municipal code that govern those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So wherever you go with that.
My issue is not how far back from the adjacent fence the compost pile should be, nor does it go to the odor issue. This can create a problem before the odor issue arises. And that's the part where you have old bedding mixed with manure lying in a heap, not necessarily to be used in a compost for a compost basis, attracting the rats. And that's what caused the problem in Eugene.
I feel like that is already addressed though, since it's covered by manure or other debris that is not removed, and we have the regulation here that it has to be a vermin-free enclosure. Like we are already covering that concern, I feel.
Agree, but also I'm wondering, is there any like statistical evidence showing that the compost was causing a problem with the rats? Or
The article that I referenced in my email, I've given the full article, the Oregonian article, to Aaron. And it was the consensus of several rat exterminators in Eugene that it was the chicken coops, the compost piles, and the backyard gardens.
okay, but that's 3 different
yeah.
things.
Yeah, but if I could finish, it was the chicken coops that in 2013, I was on the planning commission at the time, and I think, as I recall, we went from 2 or 3 chickens to allowing 6 chickens and 6 rabbits. We relaxed the farming standards, and that's when the problem happened. Was the composting. Eugene is famous for composting. I mean, anyway, a lot of people have the backyard gardens. It was when 2013 was about the time when urban micro farming and having chickens in your backyard and fresh eggs to eat in the morning was kind of a popular thing to do. And that's when this problem happened. And the exterminators, and I talked to the guy, I said, why now all of a sudden? He says, it's the chicken coops. And there was a chicken coop a few houses down from mine. So that's where I have a real problem with this issue. And relying on somebody to make a complaint that, hey, somebody's not cleaning out their compost pile soon enough. We take care, we specify that feed has to be covered and protected from rats. And I'm just thinking that these compost piles associated at least with chicken coops, domestic fowl coops, probably ought to be contained as well. A lot of people might not be using them for compost, for actual compost piles.
Is it perhaps worth noting, Randy, that this is not actually increasing the number of domestic fowl that anyone can keep, that they are already permitted to keep up to 4 chickens, and that the current regulations thus far, at least apparently, have not resulted in any issues that have caused a vermin issue here in Tualatin. This is just expanding the diversity of fowl that can be kept.
Well,
We
that's
haven't
what I
run into
was,
that issue.
I was hoping that Aaron's statistics would point that out. And maybe it's an anomaly, but suddenly we go from an average of 4 or 5 licenses per year to 2025, 10 folks.
I think that might have something to do with the economy as well.
Well,
not just
sure,
the-
whatever the reason is, you know, and we have a gentleman who wants to raise duck or have ducks. I've got no problem with this. It's the issue that they cause that I'm suggesting we need to get ahead on. And that to me is
So you're just looking-
uncontrolled manure.
You're looking for containment of
Yep.
the cleaning out.
Yep.
But it sounds like the city already has a well-rounded regulation in containment of manure and other disposal.
They throw it on the ground and require people to clean it up. And if it's not cleaned up and if it doesn't smell, it still can attract the rats.
So the proposal says that they have to have a clean sanitary,
Free of vermin,
Free
and
of vermin.
obnoxious smells and substances.
obnoxious smells and substances space. That's already in the proposal.
Yeah, and I'm suggesting that it needs to be, we need to include a container or bin enclosed on all sides and covered to deter vermin.
In there.
Specifically
Specifically.
to contain any used bedding or droppings.
Yes.
I don't know, but tell someone how to keep their stuff clean. Terry, I don't know.
I will say I have really appreciated most of the point. This one I do feel like is well covered. And I feel like we're probably getting into too much. This feels like maybe a step too far to me.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, this was a lesson learned on my part several years ago. So just for the record.
You've had experience with it.
Yeah. Okay.
My question would be, the complaints that we've already received have been regarding rats that come into adjacent properties, which could be from a million different items. Dealing with it in Multnomah County and Portland, there's so many different things that cause rats to go from all over the place. So how effective is we do our own rat enforcement in the city in Tualatin?
So
Code guy?
what I understand is if we get a call that a rat was spotted related to the keeping of backyard chickens, our code enforcement officer would schedule to go on site, observe what's happening. Out of our 8 complaints since 2019, we've had 3 records of rats on site, and he has not confirmed those records. Not to say that they're not there. I'm sure it's
Yep.
hard to determine that. I could ask him some follow-up questions about maybe if he has notes about observations on site, like if he did notice manure or compost or feed that wasn't properly kept. But he didn't really share those details with me, so I don't really know if there was any commonalities between those instances that might relate to what we're discussing.
I think what would be maybe effective is talking to them and find out if there's anything that they would recommend to change or amend to the code to just give them some more teeth
Give
to
them more
address these
teeth.
issues, to say
Mm.
like, okay, I need something in here that says it's creating a rat harborage or what their threshold is. So
That's
it's
true.
pretty low in Multnomah County for them to go out and do it, and they cover all of Portland for us.
The
So
odds of
just
seeing a
kinda
rat are very low.
super
Yeah.
low. So what they're actually
Yeah.
looking for is they're not looking for the rats because it's almost impossible to find them. They're just looking for the droppings, all the stuff. I mean, the
Evidence,
same thing
shooting.
that pest control does. And maybe if our code enforcement guy, yes, is not trained on that, maybe it's something that it's like we can contract out for animal control or whatever to do it, or he can just go get a class on like how to do that, or work with Multnomah County and say, how do you guys detect like the rats? I don't know all the terms for it. The rat, how do you,
Vermin.
what is that? A
Yeah.
rat, a rat.
I think we call it vermin in the code.
Vermin.
Yeah, that is called vermin, yes.
Yeah. A vermin tracker. Hmm.
No, I like that. Talk to the guy, see if he has any suggestions, if it needs more teeth, or if he just needs like some more training, or if, what it is that, just to make sure that it doesn't balloon out of control.
Yeah.
Well, or Ray and Ursula might be right. You might talk to Eugene and see if this was overkill, so to speak, for them, that they had this bin thing implemented. If that made any difference.
How do you keep your stuff?
So we clear the box directly into the green waste bin.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
roll that to the curb.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Away.
Yeah, see, that feels like that totally meets.
So we keep our extra bales of straw in the garage with a feed container that's closed feed. We try to abide by all the chicken laws and
Yeah.
but so we don't leave it out. I mean, bits and pieces, but bits and pieces of
Yeah.
birds are everywhere.
You're not composting for your
We
backyard
don't
garden.
compost.
Yeah.
In fact. No.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't compost the amount of straw and pine bedding. Wouldn't compost.
Just
we would
be a-
have humongous pile.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
bedding that we use wouldn't, isn't consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost feel like that's more of a composting regulation question. You know what I mean? Because I know that there are people that are composting in town. And probably their bananas are drawing all kinds of stuff in. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is a good point. So I like what Justin said. Just to have you guys look at maybe with the guy, if he needs some more teeth versus just like physically seeing a rat. Because I just feel like, yeah, he's not gonna see a rat.
No.
But yeah, if it needs a little more teeth, so that, I mean, if a neighbor's seeing tons of rats, that's an issue. They should get a little more help than just hoping that the guy sees it. So, yeah.
I'd almost rather see it and not in the animal code, actually, just its own vector code that's just there, so they can deal with it for all others.
Yeah.
Like you talk about compost, you name
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a neighbor that feeds squirrels. They
There
get
you
all
go.
that stuff. Yep.
Sister did too. She's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
with her bird feeders. They're like squirrel feeders.
Yep.
It's totally not. No, so it's just squirrel feeder.
Okay, how do you feel about that, Randy?
I'm okay.
You're okay with that? Everybody else okay
Okay.
with that?
Just for the
With
record,
leaving
I've
it
been
to-
there.
Leaving it as it is, and then they're gonna discuss it with the guy to sort of,
Yes, that
the
sounds-
regulator. Okay.
Right, so we'll go back to our code enforcement folks, see if there's any opportunity to suggest adding some more teeth or anything that could support them in their enforcement efforts for calls for rats. And to your point, Justin, that would probably be something that would be a broad application, not just to domestic fowl.
Yeah.
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 All right.
Okay.
And there were some points that weren't addressed in our code, so I'll just be general about them. Forest Grove, for some reason, in their definition of domestic fowl, they add an age definition of 3 months of age or older. And the only thing I can think happened is that somebody started having chicks. And somebody said, well, you can only have 4 or 6 chickens, and now you've got half a dozen more wandering around. So I don't know if that makes any difference to talk about age on these birds, adult birds.
I feel like leaving it as it is broad prevents us from having an issue of someone saying, well, we bought 24 chicks, which weren't covered by the code, that have now grown into
Yeah.
chickens. I think leaving it where it's just broadly,
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that hopefully gets resolved in a
total.
couple months of the aging bird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonder what they were Went out with that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the only one I plucked out of Forest Grove.
Yeah.
We should have been keeping a count of how many.
Yeah.
This one was curious to me, and this is right on for you. Salem requires that ducks must have a clean supply of water in a pond, and I noticed the picture that you had up there had a duck in a pond. A wading pool, a tub, or other container large enough for the duck to fit its entire body and deep enough for it to submerge its head. So I Googled, do ducks need to be by water? And Google came up and said, apparently they need it. They clean their heads underwater and flap their wings in water. And so Salem requires duck keepers to have a body of water.
So, but then you'd have to call it out for all the birds, or you'd have to specify ducks.
Okay.
We do. We were also told, when we took them to the vet, they asked about water supply and make sure that the pool wasn't so big to attract another. We have flightless ducks, so we don't
Mm.
worry about, but other ducks flying in.
Oh,
Yeah.
But they do
Especially during
require
cold
water. They have a small kiddie pool that they splash around.
Yeah.
There you go.
They ducks specifically, and if you get ducks, you know that. If you get chickens, you know they don't get water.
So hopefully they figured that out. Yeah.
The guys on Friends have a canoe in their apartment.
Okay.
Tragically,
Yeah.
I've never seen the great ornithological work that is Friends, apparently. But I think that
They're
this is,
bird brains.
Yeah.
this is maybe another example where referencing another extant guide, you know, again, wouldn't require us to go through and reproduce the guide for ducks and quail and pheasants, et cetera, and all the different things they may need within our code. But pointing to another organization or agency that's already done that legwork.
So like
Like
if you have PA that we talked about,
That would
Yeah,
probably cover
if-
that too.
yeah, if it's going over
Okay,
what size
right.
of container they need, and it also includes for ducks
It would
that they need water.
address the need of the bird
Yeah.
without us needing to
do
to
the-
create it ourselves, yeah, because none of us. Yeah, it's a good stone to bird ratio that we wanted to here.
I mean, I would just add, I think that's a good point because we're speaking in terms of ducks and it's kind of obvious that ducks need water, but I honestly don't know if there's special needs for quail. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know enough so to put one additional standard while it's for the good, it's then also not diving into all the other things that the other types of domestic fowl might need. So
US Fish and Wildlife Service.gov has a waterfowl habitat management handbook. We can just be like deferred to rules of existence of people who manage birds that aren't us. Which I guess wouldn't be US Fish and Wildlife, it would be, you know.
I kept referencing quail
Oregon,
just because.
whatever.
yeah,
I've
or
done-
whatever.
I've done research on like homesteading and quail keeping, so like I know that you want to keep them in a space where there's not enough space that they're going to panic and jump and hit their heads, and they want to stay like they tend to
Oh,
want like
yeah.
they all these birds have
Wow.
different like specific needs for them to thrive and be healthy and happy, and we don't want to try and cram all of that
Yeah. And I
into
don't
our
think
domestic
we
fowl.
can manage
I don't think
everything,
we
how
can.
people are caring for their pet. I mean, we don't have dog regulations. You know
No,
what I
but-
mean?
But the code, the preamble says humane treatment.
Yeah, it does.
Which is where
So-
you can reference another group.
So I think
that-
you could maybe call somebody out and say, look, these people don't have a duck. The duck's wandering around with no
Water.
water. Is it humane? Although there is a neighbor not in Tualatin, but I run by their house and they just had to put a sprinkler out for their ducks. I don't know. But I was like, okay, maybe they know what they're doing, but they.
Yeah, to your point, Teresa, I can't pin it down, but it seems like the current code references veterinary standards or something. I think it's already in there somewhere.
That's what I was just looking for. If we can find either an existing or maybe think a little bit deeper of just a blanket, like, you know,
But even
health,
the
safety,
Humane
welfare,
Society might
okay.
have-
Yeah, it's obviously his vet says, like if you interact with anybody with your pet, hopefully it would say what the healthful way to care for it is.
And I might again go back to when we do our other research for the other item, back to like the county, when they enforce like any sort of, animal cruelty.
Yeah.
Things like that. I think there's probably something already in there that we can mine, or say that someone can call in and the county animal control will come out and make sure you have water.
The Humane Society may have guidelines on a number of things.
We can
Okay.
Okay,
that a little
Okay.
bit.
but that one just, I'm glad to hear that ducks really do need water, yeah. As a beaver, I'm usually not compassionate towards ducks.
That's true.
All right, this one's probably minor, but Eugene requires, we talk about in a fenced yard, and again, Eugene requires fencing that must be designed and constructed to confine the animals on site. And I don't know what our fencing requirement is or how this is gonna pertain to townhouse lots or whatever now. But just seems like some consideration maybe ought to be given into the way that we define fencing for animals.
Dumping.
I feel like it's actually already covered in
Is it?
here. Because, yeah, it says that they have to be, here we are, must be confined at all times within a domestic fowl facility. Unless roaming under the direct supervision
Oh,
of the
yeah.
licensed
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah.
All right.
Like, so I think that is already covered in that's 6:15:30, part 5.
Okay,
So that's contained. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't get any more specific than
Okay.
that, right?
that chicken I ran across, I don't know if it was gonna cross the road or not.
Love these.
Well, I'm pretty sure that part 10 prevents us from assisting them to the other side.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, right, yeah.
And then finally, and I think, Aaron, you brought it up, we have already somewhere in the code about treating animals not cruelly or subjecting them to neglect and so forth, that's taken care of.
So with animal cruelty, we go by the state regulatory standards. And as Travis mentioned, that
Okay.
would be enforced by either police department or Washington County or the county.
Holy cow.
Thanks for your patience, folks.
That's what that is.
No, that's great. No, thanks for delving into it, Randy. I think it is all, I think there's a lot of fair points in there that,
Well, it opens up a whole lot of stuff. It's not just as simple as changing from chickens to domestic fowl.
And I appreciate the research that you
It
provided.
was kind of fun, yeah.
yeah, he likes to get into it. I think that's great because you never know too, if once, it's like you said, it'll go in the newspaper, if all some people get really excited and it's almost Easter and by everybody gets a baby duck, it will go. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you can, yeah.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Not everybody's ready to take care of it as a pet, right?
Oh, I had a friend in high school, and then that's what he did. He bought 2 little baby chickens
Yeah,
to give
they're,
to his
they're really
girlfriend.
cute. Cute.
We live in the suburbs. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
like.
Okay, anybody have any other comments, concerns? Okay, so do we need to make a motion? Yes, we do. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So we need to make a motion, but we have all those things within it, correct? So everybody think out.
So,
Commissioner Liddick, including, well, there was 4. I didn't write them down.
I think we agreed on all of them, but for,
Okay, we agreed on the combination of the types, correct?
Mhm.
like,
That-
Combined
it's not 4 of
total
each.
4, combined
Yep.
total 4 of birds.
Go for it.
We agreed on the, or similar birds for the birds they can have, but, and then adding the emu and ostrich,
Too specific.
post.
for fishing.
the 25-foot, adjacent residences. And then what was the 4th one? That's the
If I could stop, I would
Yeah.
just interject, we clarified butchering and slaughtering.
Butchering and slaughtering.
That's what it is,
Struck-
butchering and-
harvesting.
Harvesting and put in slaughter.
Okay. But we got rid of butchering and put in, no, we butchering and slaughtering.
We
is what
got rid of
did.
harvesting and put
Okay.
slaughtering
Okay.
and butchering.
Okay, and then was there anything else that we agreed to on that? And then you guys are just, as a practice, gonna go talk to the code enforcement.
Mhm.
Right, we're gonna talk to see if there's anything we can do with code enforcement relative to giving them some more teeth to enforce the issues around vermin. And explore where we can go with that. And then I think we were gonna look at the minimum standards for size and see if we can find any best practices and anything like that. And then, am I forgetting anything else?
We also discussed finding guidelines from an accredited source that we can
Yeah, reference.
Yeah,
provide to.
for-
Just
potential,
to define the humane
Yeah.
keeping of the animals.
That might hopefully include something about their space needs, water needs.
Yes,
creature
all of
needs,
those under that umbrella. Yeah.
Whatnot.
That's true. That might be kind of useful too. If somebody's trying to do it and they're like, what does that mean to be humanely carrying it? They could say, here's a good reference for you or something, right? Okay,
Provide that over.
so we need to do a motion including that. So let me think I'm gonna do this. The first time adding all this in. Okay. So we would entertain a motion to recommend that city council adopt PTA 26-0001 to amend the Tualatin Municipal Code and Development Code to expand backyard chicken regulations to include domestic fowl with the addition of total 4 combined types of domestic fowl. Remove or make emus and ostrich not possible. Clarify 25 feet of adjacent residences. Remove was it harvesting to butchering and slaughtering. And then we're going to suggest that you guys talk to code enforcement for adding more teeth for maintaining things against vermin. And minimum standard size of coops for a minimum size to see if there's something. And then look for some guidelines to reference for humane care. Okay. Do people, okay, does anybody second that?
Second.
Okay, say aye if you agree.
Aye.
Okay, no nays? Okay, there you go. Hopefully, is that enough? Okay, perfect, okay. Okay. Okay, so that takes us to, are there any communications from city staff? Yeah,
Sorry?
Meeting next month.
is there something on the agenda next month?
I thought we had.
Believe-
Maybe you don't know yet.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
no, that's great.
Unless you know.
Let me see if I can find something on our.
I'm still really slow on our, I apologize.
Or if there's anything forthcoming down the way that we need to be aware of.
Make it
Works too.
preference Now, because they graduate in June, so tell me now.
Would I, how about this, so that we're not keeping you and so that we're giving the best data if I follow tomorrow with an email to everyone of these are the things coming up that we know of at this point.
That's
That
great.
would be a
And if
good-
you saw Teresa's, just a reminder, don't reply all, of
Yes.
course. Yeah, yeah. I think you replied to Randy's, but yeah.
But I mean, for something like that, you know, you can reply, all thank you. There's nothing there. But if we're going to discuss meat, but yeah, I'll follow with an email coming up. I will say under the umbrella of communications, we are shooting, I am shooting for a March potentially to do some legal training that you do like every year. So a little more to come on that, but that's the plan right now.
That's great.
Great.
Okay,
We'll likely do that combined with ARB.
okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have anything they need to bring up? Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Little did you know.
Yeah. Yeah, enjoy your ducks. Yeah.
They found it. Yeah, the only thing they had slated was the legal training that you.
Yeah.
Send them an email just to confirm.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're clearly a great pet owner.
Yeah.